Minister. You are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there?
We need Greenland for national security purposes. Panama Canal is vital to our country. I'd like to see Canada become our 51st state.
Greetings, one and all. Super Tuesdays here from the Holy Land, the Holy City, Elon Moreshchem, my holy yeshiva. We are on the 27th day of the month of Shvat, 5785, winding down the month of Shvat. As always, this class is for the sake of heaven, to remove the divine presence from the exile, to improve ourselves. One small step today, one big step for mankind. As always, a shout out, a thank you, gratitude towards our super channel, Mike and his volunteers, and all the great things that they do all over Israel, north, south, west, east, and east in Israel. Thank you. And also to the great blog, if you have any time, or even if you don't have any spare time, make time for the blog called Palm Tree of Deborah, one word.com. Well worth your time. Okay, today we will discuss, with God's help, an amazing class with entitled Trump's Prophetic Gaza Plan. Okay, when Trump announced his plan with Prime Minister Netanyahu present, it happened to be the portion of the week in Exodus called Bishalach, when the Jewish people leave Egypt, they're redeemed, and they cross the sea, and of course all the miracles that took place during the splitting of the Red Sea. Okay, so that is an amazing, we know there are no coincidences in life, it's all from above. And we always know that the current events are always connected to the portion of the week or the holiday of that time. So this is an amazing, if you're still sitting down, you really haven't digested this unbelievable. The week that Trump announces this plan for Gaza, we are reading in the portion of the week the event of the splitting of the sea, and at the beginning of the portion, God telling the Jewish people that they will be not going the straight, short path up the coast through the land of the Philistines, but they will be taking a detour. Why is that? 30 years before the Exodus, part of the tribe of Ephraim, according to their calculations, made a mistake, and they believed that it was already the 400 year period time that God had told over to Abraham was finito. And therefore, a part of the tribe of Ephraim leaves the land of Egypt without Joseph, without his bones, and without the Jewish people. On the way, they are met by the Philistines, and they are totally wiped out. I don't want to bum you out, so I'm not going to tell you the numbers, but we're talking about a 6-digit figure. And they left their dead bodies to rot on the plains and the mountains. There are two important points to remember about this event. Number one, we are told in Shmot Rabbah, chapter 20, paragraph number 10, that, so to speak, after the Philistines perpetrated this mass murder against the Jewish tribe of Ephraim, God, so to speak, took his garment of majesty and dipped it into the blood of each of the members of the tribe of Ephraim who were murdered on their way out of Egypt. And God says, I will not be consoled until the blood of the tribe of Ephraim, the Jewish people, has been avenged. Lesson number 1. Remembering what evil nations have done to the Jewish people, to one day avenge what was done to us. Lesson number 2, God tells the Jewish people, you are a nation of slaves. You've just, for 210 years, you were in Egypt. For approximately 116 years, they were already enslaved. For 86 years, there was hard labor. So they just got out of Egypt a week ago. God says, if the Jewish nation will go the direct route to the land of Israel, which is the coastal route, and they will see all of the dead, all of the mutilated bodies of the tribe of Ephraim, they will become frightened and timid, and they will return to the safe haven of Egypt. Now this is brought down by the Ibn Ezra, who asks the question, why, when the Egyptians, after allowing the Jewish people to go, they regret their decisions and they start running after them to bring them back. Why didn't the Jewish people just turn around and fight? We know that they did take weapons with them, as we are told in the portion of Bishalach. He says there's no way. They are a nation of slaves. You can't just in one day, during that traumatic experience for 116 years, where you've been humiliated, you've been a slave, there's no way you could turn on your masters. No way. It's going to take time. Actually, that whole generation had to be wiped out in order to bring a totally different generation, their children, into the land, those that did not grow up as slaves. So that is the second lesson. God wants to encourage the Jewish people to conquer the land of Israel, and he does not want the meeting with the Philistines to remove them from this obligation that they have to conquer the land of Israel. He does not want the meeting with the Philistines on the way to stop them from our goal of settling the land of Israel, conquering the land of Israel. So therefore, God takes us on a detour. So we will continue forward. It will take longer, but then we will conquer the land of Israel. We will not return to the land of Egypt. Okay, now fast forward from those days, 3,300 plus years ago. Fast forward to Simchat Torah, a year and a half ago, or October 7th, 2023. Israel, now a superpower in the Middle East, they witness with their own eyes, a nation that witnesses with their own eyes, men, women, children slaughtered, women raped, babies, regular Jews burnt alive, put in ovens. Let's look at some of the statistics from the last 16 months. I want to say before we look at the statistics that this past Shabbat, 3 days ago, I was in a synagogue in Jerusalem, and a young man, probably in his early 20s, walks in, and he's on his crutches. He was injured. Months and months ago in the present war. When you see somebody in front of your eyes, these statistics really do not do justice. I'm just going to bring them so we know. But every person, every Jew should be looked at individually to understand that we have a human being in front of us. We have an entire life, a person with friends, families, ambitions, and dreams in their lives. And it's been either halted, stopped, or derailed for a while. Very important to remember that. Okay, so another case I really want to bring up. Yesterday I was going to my class, riding my bike to my class here in Elon More, and I ran into a friend of mine. He was one of the first people injured in the what they call the third Intifada, civil uprising by the Arabs, 25 years ago. 25 years ago, it said on the news that he was lightly injured, folks. Till this day, he is walking with 2 crutches, and he suffers many, many times when the weather gets cold, etc. It's not just a matter of walking on crutches, it's a whole 9-yard story, and he was injured lightly. So I don't like the word statistics. I don't like these declarations of seriously, moderately, lightly injured, but just so we could hear, so we could identify with the numbers here. So far, since October 7th, there are 1,846 dead Jews. Of them, 923 are civilians, 846 are soldiers, 77 are security personnel. Injured, these are just, the figures that I'm going to give you now are just soldiers. I'll give the general figure afterwards. Soldiers. So far, 5,722 soldiers have been injured. Seriously, 851, moderately, 1,423, lightly, there's that word again, 3,447. However, the real numbers are approximately 12,500 because, as I mentioned, these numbers above the 5,722, they are just soldiers, there are civilians, there are police, there are secret service, etc. Suffering psychologically. There is a organization that reaches out to people that have gone through traumatic experiences in Israel. It's called Iran, not the country, but Ayin Reish Nun Sofit. It stands for first aid for those that have been psychologically injured, suffering. They have received 300,932 phone calls for assistance, for help. Say that number a couple of times till it sinks in. Displaced. There are tens of thousands till this day in the north and the south of Israel who are displaced from their homes. So when we see the God of Israel he dips his, so to speak, he dips his garment into each and every one blood of the tribe of Joseph, of Ephraim, that was murdered by the Philistines, to remember and to avenge. Where do we stand? At this press conference, during the week that we read this portion, which talks about what happened to the tribe of Ephraim, what happened, what was God's plan. Now, instead of us emulating God and eradicating the city of Gaza, so many ways to do it. So many ways to do it. We're talking about an army, the Israeli army, who previously in 1948, 1956, 1967, took them anywhere from a half a day to a day and a half to conquer Gaza. We're 16 months later, folks. Instead of emulating God and remembering what these modern day Philistines, these Arabs in Gaza, did to us. These are people, there are no innocent bystanders. The kids are taught from the age of kindergarten to hate and despise and to fight against the Jewish people. It's in their religion. It's in their DNA. Are we going to allow the Americans, at our expense, our self-sacrifice, our blood and tears, to come in and steal our homeland, Gaza? The Arabs attack us from Gaza. We fight, and the Americans will come in to reap the benefits, the treasures? Remember those numbers that we just read. The second lesson, besides for understanding that the world was in shock when the October 7th attack happened, there was a period of grace, 5, 6, 7 days of grace. No one would have said anything. The world was in shock. The Jewish people had a carte blanche to go in and finish them off so they would never be able to perpetrate such an attack again, such a Holocaust again. We had a period of grace and we let it slip by. The world was in shock. The world would have kept quiet. But there's a second lesson we learn in this portion of Bishalach, as we mentioned. The idea of God was that the meeting with the Philistines would not trigger the Jewish people becoming frightened and running back and not conquering the land of Israel. This is an amazing point, and remember it all your lives. Perhaps the leading expert in Islam in Israel is Idit Bar. On a recent podcast, she explained that the harshest punishment for Muslims is when you take their property and land. This measure means total defeat for them. Listen to that one more time. people, I heard recently, Jonathan Pollard, when he was going to have a meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu, everyone that he spoke to before the meeting warned him, do not talk about conquering, liberating Gaza. Do not talk about settling the Gaza area with Jews, because Netanyahu will throw you out. He does not want to hear that. But folks, this is not just religious obligation. We are told by Idit Bar that this is the most logical step if you want to defeat the Muslim enemy, Islamo-Nazi enemy. The number one way, more than killing them off, the number one way is taking their property, taking their land, annexing it, have it become part of the land of Israel, settling it. Total defeat. And also, we have no such response from any of the so-called leadership here in Israel. This, decades ago, this was the policy, this was the ideology, this was Torah. The leadership, of course, did not know that it's Torah, that there is a positive commandment to conquer and to liberate the land of Israel and to remove the foreigners from it. In 1948, when Israel was attacked, in 1967, when Israel was being attacked, we took their cities, we took their villages, and they became a part of the land of Israel. That was standard. That was the vision of the leadership of Israel. It's disappeared. Beware, Jonathan, beware. Don't speak about liberating Gaza. Do not speak about settling Gaza. The number one blow to defeat them, Netanyahu blabbing day in, day out to defeat Hamas. Here's the card, baby. Here's the defeat card. No. So, October 7th comes by. Arabs of Gaza attack us in Israel, murder, rape, burning communities. God gives us an amazing opportunity to retake the Gaza Strip and remake it our homeland, making them pay the full price for their attack, for their Holocaust that they perpetrated against us on October 7th. Leadership totally silent, no intention of liberating the land of Israel. Folks, there is a dispute amongst our sages. At what stage do the Jewish people have to conquer and liberate the land of Israel? But folks, God, on a silver platter, God gives us this opportunity on a silver platter. We're in northern Gaza, we're in southern Gaza, we're in Rafah. What an opportunity! You're there. They just attacked you. All over the world, countries that attack, they lose their land. And the country that was attacked takes over. Was there a greater desecration of God's name the last 16 months? I don't think so. But now, it seems like over our backs, over our dead soldiers, our injured, our maimed for life, brothers and sisters, Israel fighting an American battle? We're going to, as President Trump announced in an interview at the BBC on February 6th, Israel will hand over the Gaza Strip to America. Can you believe this? Folks, we are in the hands of fools. We are in the hands of dangerous people here in the land of Israel. Maybe America with Saudi Arabia and Qatar money. Maybe they'll set up what they call the Riviera of the Middle East. On our backs, on our blood, and our efforts. This road, paven by Jewish blood, Jewish suffering, Jewish death, given over to the Americans, this is sickening. However, in the Jewish world, euphoria. Woohoo! Trump, our hero. Yes, Trump, our hero. He will take over our land. What a sad sight. Just last week, hundreds of thousands of people marching in London. Hands off our land. These aren't Jews. These are pro-Arabs. Hands off our land. What a joke. Their land. Where are the Jewish demonstrations? Hands off our land, America. Hands off our land, Israel. Leadership of Israel, of course. Folks, Gaza is an integral part of the land of Israel. Jewish settlement in Gaza has spanned for 3,000 years. 3,000 years. Now, throughout the millennia, there was always intermittent Jewish settlement in the area, in the territory of Gaza. During the Middle Ages, for example, for 3 centuries, Gaza was a thriving Jewish community until the Crusaders destroyed it in the 17th century. We have documentation, not just in the Torah, but we have also documentation from the 2nd century BCE until the Arab pogrom of 1929. Intermittent Jewish settlement in the territory of Gaza. This is a part of the land of Israel. And the Jews are celebrating the Trump's Gaza plan. We've lost our mind. Fast forward, 1956, the Sinai campaign. After years of attacks by the guerrillas, they were called Fedayeen, from Egypt territory into southern Israel communities, the same communities that were attacked on Simchat Torah, October 7th. Nothing has changed. Amazing. Amazing. We continue kicking the can down the road. hoping that tomorrow will be a better day when history repeats itself again and again. Because if you don't learn, you're bound to make the same mistakes. Israel launches its 1956 Sinai campaign in order to thwart the Fedayeen guerrillas coming in from Egypt. All soldiers received flyers, and I quote, "Gaza is an integral part of Israel that was torn away from us." Baby, how times have changed. Every single soldier, so they know what they're fighting for, received that flyer. Gaza is an integral part of the land of Israel, which was torn away from us. We have returned. We have returned. Yes, Israel back then was coming to retrieve and liberate its homeland once again. How times have changed. Whatever happened to the loud and strong cry of Shimon the Maccabee in the time of Hanukkah? This is brought down in the book Maccabees, chapter 15, verse 33. "We have not taken from our enemies, the Syrian Greeks, a foreign land. Rather, our rightful inheritance of our forefathers, taken away from us unjustly, we have now returned." How times have changed. Jews, euphoria, religious Jews, celebrating the new Savior, the new Messiah, Trump, who's going to take our land. The Savior of Israel is taking our land after all that we've sacrificed in the last 16 months. The number one blow against our enemies, these Nazi, Islamic Nazis, is to take their land. On the other hand, how times have not changed. How times have not changed. How many times are we going to allow foreign allies, quote unquote, to divide up our land to themselves or to our enemies? Let's look at a short history from the 1900s. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration. On November 2nd, 1917, "Dear Lord Rothschild," this was written by Arthur James Balfour, "I have much pleasure in conveying to you on behalf of His Majesty's government the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet. His Majesty's government's view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this goal." Okay, so there we go. Our allies, the British, moving right along. 3 years later, in the League of Nations, which would later become the United Nations. In 1920, in San Remo, in Italy, the League of Nations had a conference which they assigned officially. They gave over a mandate for the British to set up a homeland in the land of Israel for the Jewish people. Okay? So far, so good. However, the betrayal. Sometimes it happens right away. Sometimes it takes days, months, years, sometimes decades. But it will happen. And the price is enormous. 1922. Britain goes and gives 78% of this land allocated for the Jewish state to King Abdullah, who eventually sets up what they called Transjordan. 78% giving it away to the Arabs. Stab number one, boom. Stab number 2 and 3, 1937 and 1947. Two partition plans drawn up by the British to offer the Jews a minuscule, small portion of the land of Israel and giving the Arabs a big portion of the land of Israel. So there we have stab number 2 and number 3. Stab number 4 comes in 1948. The UN declares that we will coerce both the Jews and Arabs to accept the partition plan, which once again gives a small, minuscule part of the land of Israel to the Jewish people, and the majority goes to the Arabs. Imagine where would we be today if that came into fruition? We would be in the sea. Arabs refuse to accept, Jews accept, as they did in 1937 and 1947 to those partition plans. And the Arabs went to war, and the rest is history. Now, it's very important to remember this fact that almost nobody knows. The Arabs began to riot in Israel right around the time of the San Remo conference. They began rioting against Jewish communities here in the land of Israel. During a span from 1920 to 1947, 27 years, do you have any idea how many Jews were murdered? How many Jews were injured and maimed for life? Believe it or not, listen to this figure. 852 Jews were murdered during those 27 years. There was no state of Israel. There were no territories. There were no settlers, settlements. There was just an idea of a Jewish homeland. Remember that. Publicize it. Get that message out. People don't know. Jews don't know about that. Okay. We will, God willing, we will hold it right here. And next week, we will speak about the partition plan in 1937 and the rabbinical reaction to such an idea, to agreeing to sever parts of Israel from the land of Israel. So don't touch that dial. With God's help, we will return next week.